Hello, it's Lackey. Today I'm going to be going over my Edward Gaming G2 Esports analysis. This is over the Champions 2025 Valorant tournament for Masters Bangkok. So I actually wrote an article, as I usually do, over some of these esports matchups. And today for my application or my project, I'm going to be reviewing over my article. I'm not going to go over every single thing in my article because that's not fun to watch, but I am going to brief over what I wrote. My articles involved are some data visualizations that I created, an analysis of what the matchup was, pre-game matchup, and what the matchup or series consisted of, the strength, the weaknesses, and the actionable insights that we can take away as the G2 analyst. I also have some tabs at the top where we can review some of the videos or some of the talking points from the VODs. So I'm just going to be going over those pretty briefly just to kind of keep the video a little bit more entertaining. Let's get into it. I'm going to just be going over what the article is and just skipping through it. But what this first part really was what I just explained. It's what I'm here doing, creating this article. And then we have this pre-match context. What I like to do before I see a matchup of a series between two good teams, I want to see where they're at before they meet each other and what they need to adapt to or prepare for whenever they're going against their opponent. In this pre-matchup context, I kind of explain how EDG is an aggressive play style type of team where they rely heavily on their star players, where they can go in with their duelist and they have a lot of different trade mechanics work together as a team. For G2, they have that chemistry that they've worked on for such a long time. Similar in the way as in their team plays very well. They're a very defensive looking team. They like to have a lot more map control, patience with their plays, a lot more calculated. Whenever I talk about the pre-match context, I'm talking about where the organizations come from. For EDG, they're not known just for Valorant, they're known for plenty of other esports, so they have a wide organization to back them. They have a lot of fans, they have a lot of resources to view G2 Esports and see how they play. So I think G2, at least from an analyst perspective, G2 should be aware of this, and they should be aware of their most common pushing plays or their most common locations, something that they need to switch up during the matchup with EDG. So moving on to the series overview, this is where I'm going to be talking about the results of the series. So as you can see, I have a table with all the maps. So map 1, Pearl, map 2, Bind, Fracture, and the results of each of those maps. I also have the screenshots from Run It Back GG, so thank you for providing that. Makes it a lot easier to just see all the statistics all as one, at least for me. I love it whenever they show screenshots of the leaderboards after every game. It's just a good insight to see who really was the carry, what were some impactful kills, what statistics were good or bad. I think it's just good to get a real quick analysis of everything just like that. Below the statistics, I created this graph. This is the Run It Back power rating. From my own understanding, I know that the rating power is a combination of kills, multi-kills, assists, damage per round, all that bunched into one with multiple different type of multipliers to get you this type of score. I created one on my own whenever I was making these articles on my own. This is just a quick way of seeing who really was the top player. Compare it with all 10 of the players from the series. It's like this, where you have one team at the top, one team that's underneath. Or sometimes you have games where they mingle in between each other. For example, if Giacomo had a great series, he'd probably be right there up there with EDG. In this series, that wasn't the case. It's pretty separate. You can really tell which team won, which team took charge of the whole series. As I typically do in my articles, I say the good, the bad, and the something, because there's always something that goes into every type of series for these matchups. For the good, the strengths for G2, I really liked how they played as a team, especially on a losing series. Whenever there's so much star potential on the other team, for EDG can disrupt the execution or the play styles of G2, and I want to commend them for at least still trying to play as a team. Were all the trades there for kills? No. Were the executions perfect? Not by any means, but I still see where their mindset was. The mindset was still there, and I still commend them for that. We can talk about the whole series where there were some whiffs, there were some mistakes. Definitely true, G2 had some mistakes, but so did EDG. I actually have a couple clips where you can see this.
Won, but he's made this at least a bit of a contest. But the numbers still so good for EDG. Plant on their side. Valorant not clean enough, and EDG stamping authority on this. Jonah P can make a go of it, but a 1v3 again, a lot to ask for, and G2 doesn't.
And that right there, you can see it was a 2-on-3 situation, and with Valen whiffing that, could go into 2v2, but then it went on 1v3 and ended the round early right there. But you could also look at EDG and look at their whiffs on the very end. 2v1 situation.
Looking for the first smoke, he tucks in, he's gone down for the 1v1. Oh, what is that? Jonah P snaps up to
It's tough. It's tough. So both teams had their fair whiffs. And I think that's with every series. There's always going to be whiffs and mistakes. I don't think it's appropriate to highlight the mistakes of both teams, especially if there was a wrong execution or someone wasn't at the right place at the right time. I don't see the point in highlighting those mistakes. Honestly, I think to see the strengths from that as well is what I'm trying to do. That's why it brings right back to the discipline and how G2 did play as a team, which goes right into my second point, discipline of G2 Esports. They are a patient team. I don't want to say they're a defensive team, but they are definitely one of the top tier teams for map control, awareness of where the opposite team is going to be, and playing off of each other from that. The aggressive play style of EDG, I think it disrupted their own map control play style whenever they have a rematch with EDG. They tighten up some of those issues that we're talking about. For the discipline wise, I think G2 stays right there on top of any other team. They keep their cool, they have great self-control, and they work together, which is fantastic. Example of their discipline are these retake scenarios for post-plant situations. I created this chart here. It's just a pie chart of what are successful and failed post-plant retakes. EDG still wins in these percentiles. As you can see, they have a 55% failure rate, 45% success rate. And if I switch over here to G2, they only have a 36 and a 64. Now, why do I point this out in their strengths? Because the times that they lost in these post-plant retakes, they only lost because of that star player potential from EDG, where these EDG players would come out with 2, 3, 4 Ks and dismantle G2 execution. I think if those multi-kills weren't a factor, that this success rate would be way higher and it'd be a way better example for the discipline as a team. Spoiler alert, they do play EDG again in the future, so this is for the Swiss stage to get into the playoffs. Well, both teams made it to the playoffs. EDG and G2 played again in the semifinals of the playoffs, and G2 actually came out on top. They would get in these post-plant situations, but instead of the star power of EDG overcoming that, they actually played better as a team, and they were realizing where they went wrong on the last games on this series. So moving on to the weaknesses. I think as an analyst, it's way easier to point out the weaknesses. That's something that everyone can do, where you can point out where someone went wrong. I put a breakdown from Run It Back GG, and as you can see, they lost every single pistol round. Little quote that I have here: the first things I look at a loss is who won the pistol rounds. That is always my first question. What early strategies were used during the pistol rounds? Were they the most common strategies? Were they the normal meta pushes? Do they repeat those same pushes in meta type of pushes, or do they still stay with their old off-gamey type of plays? Is it something you need to adapt to mid-game? EDG won all 6 of those pistol rounds, and they didn't use any crazy pushes. They used typical A-site, B-site pushes that G2 should be aware of, barely losing every single time. I'll just let you watch.
Bring it all down to Smoggy! What is that for a beginning? But it's G2 to try and deal the blow, but look at the HP! It was messy, but EDG come out on top. Feeling like a formality. It's sharp from EDG. He can, he's outdone here. EDG once again looking composed. On HP here, gonna come together. Oh, Simon snaps and takes away Trent's head.
Things on.
Oh, this is a one-sided affair through and through.
Can be a game changer, motivation changer, definitely a confidence breaker or maker. Surprisingly, they won 2 of those rounds. 10 of the 12 rounds went to EDG for free. And I think that's something that they're aware of, they need to be focusing on whenever they play EDG next. Valorant is such a momentum-focused game, and I highlighted it here, bolded it as well in this paragraph. If you feel good while you're playing, you're going to play good. That is just a fact. If you don't put a stop to it, you get results like this. It's the overall first kills, first deaths So it's a comparison of both teams from all 3 games. You can see right here, Smoggy, who wasn't even a duelist. He was the smoke player. He never died. He was never the first death, but he got 9 first bloods. EDG won the first bloods. They won the first kills, the first duels, however you want to call it. You have EDG on the left side, and then you have G2 Esports on the right side. And as an analyst, this is what I would be pushing towards the team. You need to focus on the first duels. You have Jogamo, who's a great player, and he is the only duelist on G2. He had more deaths than kills for this. He had a -4 impact. It's difficult to defend as a duelist, especially on maps like Fractured, where there's 4 different entry points from the team. He is pushing out there, and that's where a lot of these deaths did come from, is where he would push out, trying to make something happen, and it just didn't work out. First game alone, won 5 of the 6 first duels in the first half. I still think that these first bloods count towards G2 not feeling completely confident in their gunplay ability in the next maps. In the half buy and the full buy, they still have more rounds and more wins on G2. G2 is actually very good at trading their kills, but in this series, they were not the best. They did allow certain players to get multi-kills, and that did run them off of their own game plan. So I think if they focused more on getting some of those trade kills on those power players, then they could eventually execute some of their in-depth mid-rounding plays. This was a conversion created by Run It Back, and so I used that to create an overall multi-kills list. Edward Gaming still is winning on all those multi-kills by 69 to 52 multi-kills. Very nice. When you have some players like Leaf or Valen that have that clutch potential, but they're just not quite getting there in this series, I hate to look at it that you're just getting outgunned, but there's some of these situations where they are just getting outgunned. So going into my final thoughts, although they're playing a hyper-aggressive team like EDG, they should be increasing their stall tactics, their sight holds, and the adaptability under pressure. Like I said, I think their patience and their self-control, their discipline is very top tier, and I think they got rattled by the aggressive playstyle of EDG. The abilities that they shot out early on to try to contain EDG, their post-plant situations got a little out of hand with not a lot of utility to convert those successes. I think G2 is a wonderful team. I think EDG is a wonderful team. I love watching both these teams play. It's awesome to see that they had a rematch in the playoffs and there was a different outcome. Props to G2 for adapting to what they previously played and learning from that. I just want to give a shout out to Run It Back GG for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for giving me this assignment, this project, and the ability to work with your software to create some of these awesome insights. So thank you for that. This is from the Discord server with the queries that we're able to obtain from just any user on the analytics tab. I created this quick Excel document. It's nothing special, but it's just a summary of all the statistics from each player, individualized each one from each game, just to get a better idea of how each game really did go. And then from that, we go from the Run It Back. I created all these charts from here in Excel. I decided to use Excel because I had not a lot of time with work to create Power BI or Tableau or Grand Video to create for this. So I'm trying to work with what the materials I got quickly. All of these player cards, you can move them. I created them. I just get the pictures that are from the website and then put them into the little charts, and then I give them their little statistics on the side. Really depends on the graph that I'm making is what the statistics are based off of. I add all my additional information or graphics all in one big site because I gotta save them as a picture. Thank you for this opportunity. Run It Back. I do appreciate your time. This is something I've always loved doing, and I always try to do it on my own free time, but with just work and just family and things like that, it can get difficult to continue doing this dream. So thank you for giving me that motivation to want to do this again. It's an awesome feeling, and I hope that some of these insights you enjoyed. I hope you can use some of this material, and if there's any questions that you have, reach out to me and I'd love to talk with y'all, answer any questions. And as I always end every article, keep on keeping on. Doses.